When eternity breaks out, who knows? Maybe something happened. I don't know. Anyway, we give generously. It says, divide your portion to 7 or even to 8. This speaks of giving generously. Robert Russell tells about a handful of his people who went on a mission trip to Eastern Europe. And when they came back, they told of the dedication of Christians in Romania. And they said Christians there don't have very much, but they believe they should tithe. And they think that that's God's standard. But the government of Romania is repressive, and they are allowed to give only 2.5% of their income to charitable anti-government organizations. So the Romanians are searching for loopholes in the law so that they'll be able to give 10%. The Romanian Christians have less, and they're looking for a way to give more. Well, by contrast, we often have more, and we're free to give as we please. In fact, we even get a tax break by doing so, and yet many are looking for loopholes in scriptures, not for a way to give more, but a way to give less. And they usually hide behind this by saying, well, tithing is legalistic and it's Old Testament and all that. Well, the key about tithing is it's always a reminder. God always keeps back a reminder to remind you that it all belongs to God. I mean, God gave man that garden, and they could eat just freely of all the trees except for one. And that one tree was to remind them that all the garden belonged to God. You know, God had told Israel to work 7 days, 6 days, and rest on the seventh day. Well, that seventh day was a reminder to them that every day of the week belonged to God. And so when we tithe, it's not a legalistic nonsense. It's a constant reminder to us that all of our money belongs to God. Well, they gave generously. Notice we're to give urgently. It says, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. Well, we don't know what a day will bring forth. Proverbs 27:1 says, boast not thyself of tomorrow, for you don't know what a day might bring forth. We might not be able to give tomorrow. Giving is an opportunity that's not always afforded a person. And this is a principle I've observed often. You know, people, for example, refuse to go to work. Refuse to go to church. They've always got some excuse. They're too tired. They're sick. They can make it Monday, but they're too sick to show up Sunday. Well, that same person, I've seen it over and over again, they get sick, and I mean really sick, and no longer can they go to church. They had a chance to go to church when they were healthy, and they didn't do it. And now that opportunity is gone. I've seen people with good jobs, large paychecks, but they refuse to give. And then they lose their job, and before you know it, they can barely feed themselves. Somebody said 4 things cannot come back: the spoken word, the spent arrow, time past, and the neglected opportunity. All right, then we're to give continually. Yes, even though life is uncertain, notice the illustration. If the clouds are full, they pour out rain upon the earth. And whether a tree falls towards the south or towards the north, wherever the tree falls, there it lies. So the idea is a storm can bring needed rain, but it can also knock over valuable trees and do much damage. Notice the application. He who watches the wind will not sow, and he who looks at the clouds will not reap. So keep sowing in spite of life's uncertainty. You surely can't reap if you don't sow, because you're all worried about what's going to happen, okay? Well, MacDonald observed, if you wait till conditions are perfect, you will accomplish nothing. There are usually some wind and some clouds. If you wait for 0 wind condition, you'll never get the seed into the fields. If you wait until there's no risk of rain, the crop will rot before they are harvested. The man who waits for certainty will wait forever. And, people say, well, I can't give in this economy. I got to wait till things pick up. Look, if you're waiting until things pick up, that's just an excuse, and you'll always be waiting. So, we give in spite of the fact of life's uncertainty. We give though things are unknown. Now, the examples given is we do not know the path the wind will take. Just as you do not know, he says, the path of the wind, we do not know the formation of a baby. So it says, and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes all things. Okay? And so the principle is, you don't know exactly, in fact, you don't even know close half the time, the activity of God who makes all things. So really, there's always some nut job out there that thinks they always know what God's up to. They don't. God's ways, frankly, are mysterious to us, okay? And all of this is to be continual. Sow your seed in the morning, and do not be idle in the evening, for you do not know whether morning or evening sowing will succeed, or whether both of them alike will be good. So the point is, by faith, we just keep giving regardless of what life circumstances seem to bring. Corson said, we find ourselves saying, as soon as I get a better job, or as soon as we pay off the credit card bill, or as soon as we get our yard planted, then we'll really start sharing. He said, there's never a good time to give. If you're waiting for the more convenient time, it'll never come. So do it now. Now is the time to do whatever the Lord has placed on your heart. Keep giving, because you don't know which seed will sprout. Keep sowing in the morning. Keep reaching out in the evening. There's really no easy time to write that check or to give generously of whatever you have, whatever resources God has given you, okay? And then we need to give even when life turns unpleasant. Notice there's a comforting factor. It says the light is pleasant, and it's good for the eyes to see the sun. Indeed, if a man should live many years, let him rejoice in them all. Obviously, God in his mercy gives each of us many years of good days. And hardly, it's crazy to focus on sick days and forget about the healthy years, okay? And think about it. We get sick or something like that, and that becomes our focus. But by comparison, how many good and healthy and prosperous days he's given us. So there's a comforting factor, and then as well as a candid factor, it says here, and let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything that is to come will be futility. The days of darkness are coming. And for us Christians, God might rapture us out of here. And it's an any moment possibility. It's an any moment promise that we look for. But if God doesn't take us out of here, this nation is becoming more and more hostile to Christianity. And dark suffering is on the horizon, and it's just a fact. And a Christian that doesn't learn to grapple with the truth that all that live godly in Christ Jesus are going to suffer persecution, he's going to have problems when all of a sudden he runs into dark days. Don't be surprised by them. They're going to come. And we prepare for what's coming by remembering to give expectantly, generously, urgently, consistently, and regardless of life's uncertainty. Okay? Mike Herman said, I've been going to professional baseball games and trying to get a souvenir baseball as far back as I can remember. Foul ball, a home run, even a batting practice ball, anything would do. He said, I was taking in batting practice for the St. Louis Cardinals, and as I watched Mark McGwire and his teammates, I got to know a 5-year-old boy who was also trying to get a ball. His name was James, He tried hard to pronounce the players' names, and I can identify with him, as he politely asked for a ball. Mr. Timwin, can I have a ball, please? Before I knew it, my mission became getting a ball for James. For about 20 minutes, I told him the names of the players who had a ball near the fence. We stood behind, and the players turned and smiled as James tried to pronounce their names. Still, no ball. He said, finally, I told James he could have my ball if I caught one. And he said, I'd been unsuccessful in catching balls for almost 28 years, so I felt it was a safe promise. Then he says, 5 minutes later, I caught a ball, and yes, I gave it to James. I wonder how often God waits to give us something until we're willing to give it away. But somehow, who leaves God out, someone who leaves God out in eternity, has little motivation to give. Self-centered people try to prepare for the future by saying, getting, and hoarding, and thus are not preparing for what's coming. And it doesn't get easier the older you get. Certain temptations hit you at certain ages of your life. But the older you get, and the more you realize you don't have much for retirement, and you're not planning on retiring. I'm not planning on retiring unless, of course, Billy Graham wasn't, but he had to retire because of health. So who knows? God's given me good health. It comes from God, and it can be removed at the snap of fingers. I don't know. But the older you get, you just get wimpy on this stuff, and you think, man, I hope I can make it. And that's just in the flesh. Amen? Well, anyway, I know it wouldn't happen to you because you're spiritual, but I'm talking to the rest of us. Okay, prepare by remembering to give, and then finally, we prepare for what's coming by remembering God, and that's the key thing. Notice living irresponsibly, focusing on what's present. It says, rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of young manhood. In other words, only do that which you find is pleasant. And if you focus on what is pleasant, second of all, following the impulses of our hearts, it says following the impulses of your heart and the desires of your eyes. In other words, you only do as you please. That's living irresponsible. Then notice we can be sure an unpleasant day of accountability is coming. So he says, yet know that God will bring you to judgment for all of these things. And that day, of course, is right around the corner because, our life, James says, is but a vapor. It appears for a little while and then it's gone. And then the understanding the need to live responsibly says, so remove grief and anger from your heart and put away pain from your body. And he's talking about removing needless sorrow, okay? And then he says, expect days of adversity. He says, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. You know, young people, they feel like they're invincible. So in the years of their greatest strength, it's difficult for them to fathom that the time will come when their vigor is going to be diminished or frankly even gone. Maybe they'll be confined to a bed. You don't know. But they assume, maybe it's subconsciously, that the energy and the drive that they enjoy today will continue throughout, to the end of their life, that the opportunities that youthful energy and ability provides, it'll always be available. Well, Solomon offers wise counsel specifically aimed at those who are younger. In essence, his counsel is this: make the most of your productive years while you can, while you have the physical stamina and the strength to do it, because the time will come sooner or later, probably sooner than you can imagine, when these physical abilities will wane. You will reap in old age what you've sown in your youth. Well, we have, we don't prepare for what's coming when we forget to remember God. Somebody said this: he brushed his teeth 3 times a day. wore his rubbers when it rained. He never exceeded the speed